Hi, I'm Joshua Barnes, and I'm joined here as almost usual with Al Shalloway.
Hey
And
there.
in our 5-minute live stream short today, we are going to cover cost of working on more than one project at a time. And one of the things I think that comes to mind immediately for most people is they immediately jump to context switching or multitasking, right? We know that teams and as individual team members, just individuals, we oftentimes are working on more than one thing at a time, and we know that costs us. But Al, I'll ask you to dive in a little bit deeper, because we both know that there's something in addition to that context
Yeah.
switching that is the real cost.
Yeah. I started getting interested in context switching when I was actually a technical coach back in the late 90s. And I saw how teams I was doing technical work with were working on multiple things. But as I learned lean a few years later, or lean in software anyway, I realized that context switching has kind of a steady impact of maybe 10-20% of our efficiency. And there are actually much, much worse problems. Most companies are operating at a 10 to 20% effective rate, I would say, or efficiency rate. Effectiveness may make it worse. And context switching is really only a small part of it. I'll give you a thought experiment to start thinking about it. This is made up, of course, but what if you had 5 projects you were working on, and you came in on Monday to work on one, on Tuesday to work on another, on Wednesday to work on another, etc.? There's no context switching other than getting to work and getting away from work. You could say, well, when I come in on Wednesday, I got to remember back to a week. So yeah, that's actually something, but I'm context switching over a long time. It's not this frenetic context switching. I would suggest that when you start looking at multiple projects through the lens of lean, you start noticing the delays that are caused. In other words, if I'm in context switching, if I'm working on one thing and somebody talks to me, then they have to wait for me. Well, I just injected a delay in their value stream, vice versa. I need somebody and they're working on multiple things. I have to wait for them. Now they're injecting a delay in my value stream. Okay. This kind of destroys any kind of continuity of work. And it also damages any sense of cooperation that there might be between us. Because I'm always waiting for that guy. What's he doing? I need help. They're not here. And the obvious thing also is that it delays the delivery of any value. If you work on 2 things of the same type, it's going to take at least twice as long. Not to mention the real problem of, okay, yeah, there is context switching, there is multitasking. That's going to slow you down too. But the key is all of those things I mentioned creates delays, it lowers cooperation, and also creates extra work to be done that really didn't need to happen.
Work.
And that's the key. Then now you're spending all this time on extra work, and people are wondering, why don't you have this stuff developed? Then they put more pressure on you, and you've got this downward cycle.
And it's a vicious cycle to get in, add into that frustration, right? And that gets tiring, right?
Yeah.
That's a tough spot to be in.
And this is why actually there's such an importance to understand what's going on. The only way to get out of these vicious cycles is to realize you're in them and why you're in them. And if you don't understand that, and many agile teams that are really having a lot of pressure to get stuff done, the problem with a team process that talks only about the team is management's not being included in that conversation. So they don't understand what's going on. They will just revert to what they're used to. Dr. Ellie Goldratt, the creator of Theory of Constraints, commented once that being in a comfort zone, meaning you're doing what you understand, is much more powerful than a command and control type thing. So a lot of times we blame command and control. They're still doing command and control, but it's really, they don't have a way out of their, I'm comfortable when I do this, because there's no understanding of how these delays are causing problems. So when you drive from lean thinking and flow and theory of constraints, you start focusing on the workflows, the delays that are there, and you start realizing that multiple things in progress are really problematic. I'm going to inject one other idea, and I'm sure we'll get to this in the next session or two, but these things are all interrelated to each other. It's why you can't just maybe do one thing and get other things. But if you're not going to multitask, if you're not going to have multiple projects, the question is, well, what are you going to work on? And then the question is, how do you determine that? And I would suggest if you stop, and I'm going to leave this as a question for the viewer. If a story is not a releasable thing, features sometimes are releasable, sometimes they're not. If an epic is bigger than a releasable thing, then what are you going to use to get something out the door that everybody can focus on and say, hey, we're not going to work on anything until this is done? This is something missing in a lot of Agile teams and in a lot of Agile implementations. What's that one thing you're going to get? Now, I know about MVPs, but I'm talking about when you're enhancing something and you know kind of what you need. Anyway.
Yeah. So cost of working on more than one project at a time, more than just context switching or multitasking.
Right.
If you want to learn more, just use the QR code that is down in the bottom of the screen. We've got lots and lots of these 5-minute shorts that we have, and we're going to continue to do. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for being here.